afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin. I'm the head of GDS Central. And today I'm very excited to be talking to you about retooling the government development experience. And after my short talk, I will let Karen Key talk a little bit more about Developers Portal. And today we're going to offer you the kind of things and the kind of services we will have for developers, be it whether you work for the government or you work for companies that work on government projects. And first off, let's start off with what we have experienced so far in this last few years. I'm very proud to say that we have 50% of our eligible workloads now on the cloud, and we're all on target to have 70% of the eligible workloads on the cloud by the end of next year. I'd like to take this moment to thank you all for your effort. It is a community effort that we are now achieving this target. Thank you very much. Next, I want to talk about the adoption of CI/CD. And here I'm also very proud to say that we have 50% or more of our agency adopting CI/CD. And in fact, a lot of them are using shipheads. And it's very important for us to have a common tool. And the reason for that is that we are then able to see each other's code, to be able to learn from one another, and to be able to progress at a much faster rate. And I think this is very important. And next, I want to talk a little bit about cloud operations. I remember when I first joined GovTech about 2 years ago, we were doing migration to the cloud. And at that point in time, we have a developer's laptop that was not secure. And the only security was the VPN connection. And today, we have a secure endpoint solution. It is called SEED. And SEED is not just a network parameter solution. SEED is a solution that allows us to have end-to-end encryption from one point of the user to the other point where it's the resources. And depending on the risk posture, we are able to turn it on or turn it off as needed. And it has fine granular controls. It clearly exhibits some of this zero trust aspiration that we might have. And last but not least, we have Developers Portal. And Developers Portal, we have started putting in a lot of content onto Developers Portal directly to be accessible by all of you. A lot of this cloud and GCC articles used to be shared internally within the government. But today, a lot of these articles are actually inside Developers Portal. And you know what? For all the CI/CD we'll talk about and the need to upskill our DevSecOps, we have also decided to codify the DevSecOps practices into a playbook. And this, you know where that is? It's in the Developers Portal. And last but not least, I spoke about SEED earlier, and if you're not onboarded on SEED, and if you'd like to onboard it, you can see the instructions on the Developers Portal. So we are making more and more content on Developers Portal. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for your support, as well as for your patience to adopt all these developed tools. And this is very important for us because it's all about community. And we progress together as a community. And today, I'm very proud to be part of GovTech for Singapore. Not so much about my organization, but as in working in technology in the government. We are as close as what we can be like the technology industry. Now, as we look at the good parts, right, it's also important for us to see where we can improve upon. And this is what I call the bad. And today, truth to be told, right, when you look at cloud deployments, there are still various kinds of cloud deployments. We have infrastructure as code, we have container solution. And today is more often seen as a build phase kind of solution. And when the system goes into production, unfortunately, we go sometimes back into click ops maintenance. And so, as you can see, infrastructure as code, as well as container solution are not first class. And every time when you build a new system again, we reinvent the wheel again. And that's not the way we want to use infrastructure as code or container solution. And then from a code perspective, when we first rolled out shipheads, we were pretty loose about how it would be used. It is really meant for developers to use shipheads to use their CI/CD. But unfortunately, the use has been very, very mixed. And as a result of that, some of the agencies or some of the customers actually use it in a very minor way. For example, they only use Jira and Confluence for collaboration. And today, we do not have a DevSecOps pipeline that provides the necessary security guardrails to run our CI/CD operations. And neither do we have a security testing coverage for all agencies that we can look at. And next is a very important topic. While we have done a lot for monitoring, while we have done a lot for security endpoint, for cloud monitoring, we have not done a lot for server workload monitoring. And I think we can do much more there. Today, each of our agencies have our incident management process. Why do we do that? When we have automation that we can standardize and centralize, and such that we can do this in a more secure, centralized, and scalable way. There's no need for us to adhere to a certain set of policies, and then we let the agency implement on their own. It's best to do this in a centralized fashion, because now we have automation. And while I sing a lot of praises about Developers Portal, there's more and more content coming into Developers Portal. I think one thing to be said is that how can we make the Developers Portal an interactive platform? A platform where we can communicate to you and the developer can directly work on it. And now, this is the good, the bad, and for those who are familiar with this storyline, the next slide is called the ugly. Okay, the ugly is no surprises. We still work in a government environment, and which means that I still need to spend a lot of time to explain on the benefits of the technology platform, as well as the cloud benefits to all my stakeholders. And over the years I've been in government, I think I've learned this a little bit better. Actually, for that, policymakers, it's quite hard to do if you think about it. You have what? Vertical farming, diversify your food supply, disease control, and many, many things. And all of this requires some core technology capability to be involved. And I think it's very hard for them to realize why is it so important to improve the developer experience. And I urge you as partners of the community to carry the flag, right, so to speak, to engage your stakeholders to talk about the importance of good development experience such that it can make meaningful outcomes to the citizens as well as to the business. And I'll offer you a thinking model for you to talk to your stakeholders. So this is what I consider a government technology life cycle. This is a technology adoption curve, but I adapted it for the sake of the government. So there are a few phases from left to right. So the first phase is what we call the emerging phase. This is where we have the 1,000 flowers bloom. For those who are old enough, you remember the first internet-enabled phones. They come in all varieties. You have the feature phones that you can do internet by text messages, or the walk, if you have heard of that. And then we have the first generation of smartphones, which are really not really that smart to begin with. And for those who still remember, a lot of the executives like to use their phone to type emails on their BlackBerries. So in that phase of the first generation of internet-enabled phones, right, it's very diverse. Everybody is trying to fight for competition to see whether they can stand out or not. And then we have this consolidating phase. I think in this consolidating phase is where we have the current state of phone today, right? There's iOS and there's Android. And I think at this point in time, it is very unlikely we'll use another standard because we will not want to inconvenience ourselves or make our life difficult. And this during the consolidating phase. And then we have the mandating phase. And a lot of you may worry about, during mandate, we are worried about concentration risks. We are worried about technology lock-in. Hey, but come on. Technologies has always been like that. Think about the internet. We are all built on the TCP/IP network. And today, when we exchange documents, we actually use Word document. We are not going to change to any other format anytime soon. So this is just a fact of life. And then finally, we have the sunsetting phase. I think there will come a point in time where the technology does not make sense anymore. And some of this may still apply in certain cases, but it will be far and in between. And this one, I give you all this advice. We all need to be heartless to sunset technology because there's only finite capacity and resource and time. And if we do not get rid of the old, it's very hard to bring in the new. And with this framework in mind, it's by no means a comprehensive framework, but at least it gives you that thought process. I'll lay out this SG Techstack roadmap in this manner so that you can understand where you can bring to your stakeholders and when you're supposed to be investigating about new solutions and when you should be sunsetting. So you can see from the left to right again, right? Where just now I talked about the various deployment, today is still at an emerging phase where we have various kind of Kubernetes implementation and everybody is trying out their infrastructure as code. And then in the consolidating phase, you can see shipheads CI/CD that we talk about. We are being more instructive and maybe even some sense prescriptive about the use of shipheads. And then slowly coming along is StackOps, where it's all about application performance monitoring. We clearly want a more standardized solution to do this. And then along to the right, we have things like the cloud. I think it's reality today that if you want to move a workload that's what we call restricted, it has to go to GCC. And if you want to go to GCC, it is important that you use Seed, the security endpoint solution that I talk about, to go on GCC. And finally, on the right side, the things that we're sunsetting. And while we still have our on-premise workload, it's very important to know that this will be few and far in between, and it will be very, very expensive to do. And I think we also need to move on from some of the policies that was originally constructed for on-premise. They are no longer relevant. We need to be able to sunset them. And I think to help you further, right, let me talk to you about each of this strategy for each phase. I think in the emerging phase, right, it is important to start small, fail fast, and try out everything to see what it works. And at this point in time, you should be insular rather than trying out with a lot of customers. And here's what we have some examples, right? Like in Container Stack, we have this solution that's used for our own Kubernetes implementation. We have found out and learned from our experience that it works actually very well in environments where the developers are not really into infrastructure. So for example, there was this microsite, thank you, Chair. That was a microsite used by Ministry of Education, right, where they had thank you greetings for the teachers during Teachers' Day. And they were able to deploy this very quickly without much help from the infrastructure support. And then the other one that comes in quite a lot is the use of innovation teams, right, where they actually use a container stack solution, again, to deploy as quickly as possible and not focus so much on infrastructure. Also, the second one we have is developer console. So we talked about earlier on about how we should be more interactive, and we have started thinking about this to build some of the development tools within developers portal itself. And we have started to talk to individual teams to see how we can actually improve the developer experience on a bit-by-bit basis. And it's very important that we understand this development experience on the ground. And the lesson here is that at this emerging phase, I think we can really try and experiment. And as a community, I encourage all of you, even though you are not part of SG Techstack team, please go ahead and experiment and let us know how it works out for you. But I just want to make a short advertisement. If you're really serious about technology platform, my team is basically the capability center for doing this kind of technology platform. Please, you're welcome to either rotate to my team or please join my team directly. And then we have the next phase, right? This is where we call the consolidating phase. I think this is an important part of the journey, right, where we need to solve actual problems. And solving actual problems from a policy standpoint is really about reducing time to market, making sure that very tight security controls, and of course, reducing costs. This is what all the CFO would like to hear, reducing costs. And I think this is very important that we target ourselves internally first in our own teams before we go and outsource it. Because if we don't even know how to do it ourselves, how can we even outsource it? So this is very important. And I think it's also very important at this point in time, right, where we work with you very, very closely to understand how you're applying your tools, as well as what are the value you glean from it. Because we want to be able to understand how it actually works in practice. And today we have two tools that are at the brim of this phase, right? ShipHats is one of them. ShipHats is where we want to use this platform to strengthen our DevSecOps adoption. And you hear a lot of this DevSecOps later on as well, as other people talk about it. And this is also very important that once we are able to get everybody adopting DevSecOps, we're able to assess performance even more centrally to understand where and which areas you can improve on. And next, we also have this tool called StackOps. StackOps is our application performance monitoring tool. And I think the problem we have today in this space is that there's just too many monitoring tools. And that creates a lot of problems. The first problem is that as a developer, because of certain requirements, you may need to integrate to various monitoring capabilities. And this takes up time. And when you go into production, because you have so many monitoring agents running, the system becomes slow. So I think we're going to introduce StackOps as an opportunity, right, to see how we can consolidate some of these monitoring capabilities. And it can include both security monitoring as well as app performance monitoring. And next, we have this phase known as the mandating phase, right? And this is where we already have standard templates, standard documentation that you can just adopt. And at this phase, it's really all about making sure that the tools are usable with maximum efficiency. And this, I will not say too much about this. It's all very familiar to all of you. This is the government on commercial cloud. If you're coming on restricted workloads, please come on government on commercial cloud. And we have also since developed the GCC tool, at least for AWS, and Azure is coming very shortly, followed by GCP at some point in time. And we will be encouraging all of you to adopt these tools because then you can be as native as possible. Then, as mentioned earlier, for a couple of times, we have this endpoint security solution called SEED. It's compulsory if you are accessing GCC, and we're going to expand this to SG Techstack. So I think it's very important that as you think about the use of these tools at this point in time is all about the ease and convenience and the speed where you can onboard to these tools. And finally, we have the sunsetting phase, right? As I said earlier, in the sunsetting phase, we need to care about emerging substitute or substitute that has already emerged. We need to set our timeline on when we sunset things. So we need to be heartless about it, as I said. And I think from there, right, we also need to tear down the support ecosystem and documentation so that we have as little resources as possible applied to this sunset environment. And Apex on-prem is something that has served us well back when a lot of the workloads are on-premise. And today, a lot of them have moved out to the cloud, and we have set our timeline to sunset Apex on-prem. And not to worry for all of you who are using Apex, we do have the Apex Cloud that's being introduced as a suitable alternative. And given that this is emerging, right, we are also encouraging that if you would like to use your cloud service provider API gateway, by all means, go do it. I think Apex Cloud can do it better, but please go ahead, try it, and let us know the outcome. And finally, I want to make a passing point about, we do have new policies in place for infrastructure as a service as well as platform as a service. I think some of these policies were written from a different period of time, right? Where it is all a lot about doing a lot of checking and very little of the making. And today, we need to trust the developers. We need to make sure that they're able to deliver with sufficient freedom and trust them to do the right things. And for those of you who are familiar with AIaaS, right? And for those who do not know, it's fine. But for those who are familiar, I'll share that from henceforth, right? If you are implementing system on the cloud, there's really no need to apply AIaaS. And finally, I would like to say that as part of this thinking, right, it's also very related to this concept of the security shift left. I think on the shift left side, we spend a lot of time about the technology, but the important part is really the mindset, where we actually trust technology team to be able to do security properly, and therefore they are able to apply security very early in the development life cycle. And with this, I hope I give you a sense of how you can communicate some of this roadmap of where SG Techstack products that are coming to you, and how you can convince your stakeholder why improving the developer experience can give you the best outcomes for your agencies to benefit the citizens and to benefit the business. And I just want to end off very quickly here before I hand over to Karen, that we have done quite a lot on the cloud. Without your help, we would never have reached this state we are. Thank you once again. We have gone on this space to adopt shipheads quite at scale. Thank you very much. And I would like to share at a future time, right, I will talk a little bit more about the SG Techstack service layer, where you envision a world, right, where you build a system that you can just take services like as if from a library, right, and compose them together. And this will cut your time to market even more drastically. And finally, there is something that we also have spoke about, is that as we start building these services into systems, we can actually make systems that are usable time and time again, and we call this the product platform. And this product platform is, you can think of it as GovTech off the shelf, right, for the agencies, for them to adopt a solution as quickly as possible. And with that, I hope this gives you a sense of how you can move up the innovation line and be even more productive. And I'll hand this over to Karen.
Thank you, Kevin. Hi, everyone. And to those logging on online, hello as well. So my name is Karen, and I lead the international relations as well as the community engagement work here in GovTech. So Kevin has said a lot about the developer portal. I'll go into a bit more detail of what the developer portal has and how we're trying to improve the developer experience through the portal. So it's a one-source resource hub where we aim to host a lot of information for developers, agency users, CIOs, and business users, as well as partner agency users and vendors. So how the journey started was really a few years ago. A number of developers created the portal really out of need. They wanted to have a place to access a lot of the information and products that was developed by government, so we created the portal. And we did find that since it was such a valuable resource, we started to open up the portal, not just to the developers within GovTech, but we also open up the portal to the external community and the internet community as well. And in addition to hosting GovTech products, we have opened up and onboarded quite a number of products from other agencies, such as URA, LTA, CPF, etc., is available on the portal. So this is an overview of the components of the developer portal. So product information, technical documentation, policies and guidelines, as well as how to access and connect with the Stack community is available on the portal. So over the past few years, we have onboarded quite a number of products. More than 80 products are available on the portal. So if you see here, many of the products such as LiveSG, SingPass, CODEX is available on the portal. Open Attestation, which is a product that was developed in-house, which is open source and played a key role during the COVID, and it's the power behind the health certs, is also on the portal. Hunter shared about inner sourcing just now, is also published on the portal as well. And because there is a wealth of information available on the portal, we have provided many ways for you to access the content. First, which is all products. So it's able to list all the products available on the portal, as it says. The other way that we have done it is through collections. So some of the collections include Singapore Government Technology Stack, where we have grouped some of the products together, as well as data science and AI, and the other collection available is citizen-facing products. We have also another way that you can look for information through the portal, which is through categories. Things like your developer tools, productivity tools, how you do user experience, etc. We also invite you to access the portal to take a look at some of the open source products that we have available on the portal, which includes Open Attestation, like I mentioned just now. So the technical documentation is also available on the portal if you want more information. So this includes some of the API specs that's there, some of the apps available, the user guides and playbooks, etc. It's available on GitHub in Markdown, which we trust that a lot of developers are familiar and comfortable with. So the next part is policies and best practices that we have on the portal. Taking back feedback from users, we do realize the importance of having policies and guidelines available on the portal for our partners, for our agency users to understand what are some of the guidelines. And notably, the ICT and SS management policy is available on the portal, fondly known as IM8 previously. So there you can access some of the guidelines on how you do procurement, outsourcing, data classification, as well as how do you restrict access of data transfer across. The other information available on the portal also is the Cloud First Policy Playbook policies, as well as the digital service standards and other best practices and guidelines are available on the portal. So we're excited to share that we have developed the developer portal. We have onboarded quite a number of technical documentation the past few years. The team is excited to think about how we can really move forward to improve the developer experience next. And we are excited to have started implementation on the developer console. Kevin briefly mentioned it just now. And what this essentially is a one view for users to come to onboard information, some of the products that they have, configure some of the SGTS products, the Singapore Government Technology Stack products, and as well as a consolidated billing view that you can access through this developer console. So it's in progress. We're happy to hear your feedback. If there are other areas within the portal that you would like to see that's not there, we're happy to hear feedback and improve the portal as well. So the last part that we have on the portal, which is close to our heart, is the developer community. And through the portal, we have listed quite a number of open source information to connect with the community. Stack is the other area which we connect with the community as well. So we started the Stack community about 2 to 3 years ago when we started the Stack conference. So beside a big scale Stack conference like this one, we do organize single topical focus conferences such as data science, cloud, DevOps are some of the conferences that we have organized. And if you want something a little bit more intimate, we do organize on a monthly basis StackX meetups. So you can come, you can hear GovTech speakers share, as well as some of the private sector industry speakers. They come together and speak on a specific topic. And we have a small intimate group, about less than 100 people, to come exchange ideas and really connect with like-minded people. So we invite you to scan the QR code on the page now. And it really brings you to the Telegram page where we share some of the latest events that we're organizing, some of the latest things that's updated on the developer portal will be shared through this Telegram chat. And if you're already part of the Stack community, we invite you to join us as an advocate. What essentially that means is we hope to share more about government products with you, be one of the first to give your feedback on how you feel some of these products can be improved and developed, speak to the people behind these product teams as well, and to engage senior leaders to get their thoughts and thinking about how we develop some of these products. So this QR code will bring you to a form where we invite you to really register and fill in and join us as an advocate for the Stack community. So with this, this is my last slide. I end my presentation, and I'll invite Kevin on stage where we'll be happy to take questions from the audience. Thank you.